Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and it is April 25th of 2022. Yeah, I missed one of these update vlogs back in March, but hey, I was busy working on Prey 2017, and what a game that was. As of right now, I'm working on a review of Batman Arkham Asylum. Longtime fans will remember, I hated that game. Although, my complaints in that video were all rectified in Batman Arkham City, so maybe I had something there. I got a lot of negative feedback on that, and rightly so, because Batman Arkham Asylum is an absolutely exceptional game, but like every point that I raised in that game was fixed in Arkham City, so but yeah, Arkham Asylum is getting a positive review, and the reason why it's taking so long is I'm actually going to be dressing up as Batman, because I have an awesome Bat costume that I'm going to be dressing up in. And I'm going to be reviewing the game as Batman, so that should prove to be a great deal of fun, to be certain. With that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, we're also going to potentially be seeing a review, well, not a review, but a let's build, and having built, of that at some point. I'm not really sure when that's going to be, just because I've got so much crap I've got to do. But this is a model of the Dreadnought class, or the Federation class Dreadnought. This is actually a canonical ship in Star Trek. It was seen on a panel in, like, Star Trek 3, I think. This is a fan-produced model. Now, this is nothing new. This is actually a resin model. It's very old and been manufactured for many years. I picked that up off of Federation Models. I was so happy when I learned that Federation Models still existed. I bought like a couple models from them back in 2007, promptly forgot about them, and then checked them out, and it's like, they still make them! The first model I got from them was actually this, which that is very white, and that's okay. This is the Cyclone class starfighter carrier. This is the first one I started, but I just haven't been really in the mood to really get down to the fine details of that, because good God, our Star Trek model is hard to make. But I've also picked up a couple of Star Wars models. Gotta love 3D printing, because you can get models that might otherwise not exist. And what we have here is half of an Acclimator class assault ship. I've also got a Crack class cruiser that I'm currently working on. I'm doing the fine detail work on that because it's a lot less colorful than the Federation ship here. Federation ships have all kinds of details you gotta put in. This is gonna be a little easier just because it's just a lot of different shades of gray. Thankfully not 50. Actually, when I make my Star Wars models, I'm going to be making these things Federation ships, because I'm that big of a Star Trek nut. This is going to be the USS Texas, and the Crack class is going to be the USS Sam Houston. And one more piece of show and tell is this. If you've ever wanted to build the Ebon Hawk, you've got some options. This, of course, is an Ebon Hawk model that I picked, Lego, that I picked up off of Etsy for like 40 bucks. And this thing looks sick. Excellent detailing. Kind of losing the laser cannon there. Actually, it's a turbo laser. Excellent detailing. I mean, it looks like it's supposed to. You even get little landing legs there. Landing legs. Wow, I must be tired. And a little landing ramp. Really cool. From the same company, I think it's like MOC Creations on Etsy. I also picked up a Battlestar Galactica. And I'm not going to be doing a video on that because that would take way too long, because it's like 2,000 pieces, but I've always wanted a giant Lego, and, well, why not build the original 1978 Battlestar Galactica? It's an awesome ship. One that has stood the test of time. So yeah, been working on a lot of models. There might be an and having built at some point. Not sure when, just because so much stuff I got to do. The Batman review is going to take a while, simply because I got to set up a green screen, because I'm actually going to show myself in front of like a bat cave backdrop. It's going to be sweet. So yeah, with all that in mind, going to be continuing my live stream series of Call of Duty 3, and then moving on to Halo 2. And that's pretty much the reviews planned for the next couple months. June, I'm going to be reviewing Call of Duty 3 with a friend of mine. The same guy who did Medal of Honor Frontline, Akbar fan. He's going to be collaborating on that with me. Call of Duty 3, so far I've played about an hour and a half of it for the live stream, and the only problem I see with it is there's a little bit of lag, and I'm not sure if that's because of the game or because of the capture card. It's just, there's a little bit of lag with the controls, so it's a little hard to shoot things. But I'm very tempted to blame the game just because the actual shooting mechanics, the actual shooting mechanics in Crysis were not very good. It was very hard to hit anything in that game, at least as far as I remember. Let's see. So, current events. Elon Musk has purchased Twitter. This could be good, or this could be not much of anything. Free speech has been under attack probably since the early 1800s, but recently online free speech has been under attack more often than it had been in previous years. You know, anyone who does not toe the party corporate line is shadow banned, canceled, stuff like that. People show up at your house, they call you on the phone and say, how dare you support this thing we don't like, such as the Canadian truckers. Local news reporters went after anybody who actually donated to them. The whole Canadian trucker thing, just to go on a bit of an aside, is a bit frightening just because, you know, that is setting the precedent for what a government can do. If you support something that in current year the government doesn't support, they can shut your bank account down. That's scary. So hopefully we will see Elon Musk bring some freedom of speech to the Twitter sphere. What's always a bit amusing, though, is you have hypocrites say, like, well, it's a private company. Well, I thought you hated private companies. And speaking of private companies, Disney got smacked down by Florida. Disney had been, well, supporting political causes, and I'm not really sure if corporations should be supporting political causes, because usually what they like to vote in is lower tax rates for them. That's not the case in all ways, but they seem to be able to get away with that. Disney themselves actually had a self-governing thing in Florida, so it was actually worse than I thought. Essentially, they weren't just paying lower taxes, but they were also able to control their own territory, and that's what Florida revoked. Which, why exactly does a theme park have the ability to control its own territory? I mean, it's not like it's Jurassic Park. So yeah, there's some good movements going on. So whenever you feel like it's a black pill day, just remember, people are pushing back all over the world, and this is very, very good indeed. And so moving on from political stuff, media, ladies and gentlemen, the Halo TV show is out, and it is most certainly not Halo. But unlike with other reviewers, I'm not going to talk about it like it's the worst thing ever, because it really isn't. The worst thing ever is Star Trek Picard, followed closely by Star Trek Discovery. Halo the TV show, well, not Halo, if it was called, like, The Lieutenant, then it might actually be pretty good. The plot line isn't bad. It's not Halo, but it's not bad. It's a compelling concept of you have these super soldiers and they're trying to learn how to be human. Now, Halo had none of that. I'm actually rereading Fall of Reach right now, and Fall of Reach is, of course, just a better story. It's better written, it's better plotted than the Halo TV show, but it has nothing to do with the TV show. Like, the real Halo universe, nothing to do with it, because the Spartans have human emotions. They are every bit as emotional as any regular person, but they have a strong sense of duty to the UNSC, a strong sense of loyalty to the UNSC. They would not need an emotional control pellet to get them to do whatever it is they want to do. Really, I think not the developers, but the writers of the show have ripped off a variety of other franchises and just have a veneer of Halo. They have references and what some call member berries, where they'll have a detail from like a book or a game, but the context will be completely different, thus invalidating everything about it. So like the control pellet is such a, I mean, it's very obvious that it's a ripoff of the control chip in Star Wars The Clone Wars, which is really stupid anyway. That's an example of a really dumb retcon when the basic universe already worked. The clones were conditioned to be loyal to the Republic until they shot the Jedi. They didn't need a control chip, and thus that invalidated a lot of drama in the Karen Travis books where clones actually resisted their conditioning, but anyway, that doesn't matter. The show itself, the Halo show, has potential. I kind of like it. I mean, it is not the games. It is the context for literally everything in that show is different from the games. You could not get any further than, well, actually they did try. They got as far from the games as they possibly could. It just looks a little bit like Halo. It doesn't act like it. It doesn't sound like it. It most certainly isn't it. Master Chief taking off his helmet is the least of that show's problems. That's the very least of that show's problems. If he took his helmet off all the time and everything was lore accurate and canon accurate, I'd be happy. Realistically, though, if you wanted to make a Halo TV show and actually have it be good, all you really had to do was just adapt the books and just focus on the side characters and have Master Chief just be there to blow things up and have one or two lines here and there. I mean, that would have worked. People would have ate that stuff up. Instead, you have a soap opera, really. And it's a good one. It's just that's not what people want from Halo, so you're going to split the fan base. You've got people who don't care about science fiction aren't going to watch it, and then you're going to have people who have... Well, actually, here's the problem. The fan base is going to be split. The games, books, those fans are going to hate it, and then there's going to be some new fans, a very small group of new fans that are going to be like, it's the best thing ever, it's an alternate universe. But the wider audience that the writers, I guess, wanted to try to reach aren't going to watch it. They're not going to care about it. It's just going to be some sci-fi show that they don't care about. It's the same thing that happened with Game of Thrones, where they wanted it to be for a wider audience that doesn't watch fantasy. Well, if they don't watch fantasy, even no matter how wide you cast that net, people aren't going to watch it because Game of Thrones can't really become like Home Improvement or something like that. It's not going to work. So, yeah. Will Halo ever get better for the fans? Probably not. I get the feeling they're going to retcon stuff in Season 2. They're going to have to respond to fan backlash, just like some other franchises have tried to do, unlike Star Trek. I mean, when it comes to the modern media landscape, you know, there's not many good options. I can still say that Halo, the TV show, is still better than STD and Pucard. And it's better than it by a wider margin than you think. You know, it's kind of funny that social media exists because while social media is good, it is very much a double-edged sword. People want to get the clicks. You know, it's like, Book of Boba Fett ruined Star Wars. No, the sequel trilogy ruined Star Wars. Book of Boba Fett was, if anything, just pretty boring. And the final episode, I think, is the final episode of Book of Boba Fett. You should have seen the outrage merchants going on about how this kills Star Wars when the last episode of Book of Boba Fett was everything everyone had been waiting for. Especially me. I've rewatched that thing a lot of times because you got Boba Fett on the Rancor, you got him fighting Cad Bane. It's great. It's just, when you say everything's bad, nothing can be bad. Everything is bad, but there are some minor exceptions, and Halo is that minor exception. Really, if you want to blame anything about modern-day media practices, you can kind of blame Battlestar Galactica Reimagined. I was thinking about that the other day. BSG Reimagined really is not a very good show, and yet people ate that shit up when it came out. I did! I ate that shit up. I thought it was great. But the big problem with Battlestar Galactica Reimagined is it's such an unrelentingly bleak universe. If you watch that show, BSG Reimagined, and compare what happens in that show to Halo, you can see where a lot of that inspiration came from. Battlestar Galactica has the corrupt government. It's got the extreme violence, although not as extreme as what we have today because they had different standards and practices back in 2004, but still. And the tone of, like, everybody dies and it doesn't matter. I actually liked Battlestar Galactica Battlestar Galactica Reimagining right up until they landed on New Caprica, and then I gave up after that. I even talked to Katie Sackhoff herself about that and how I didn't like that. She wasn't responsible for it, but I had to say it anyway, because good God, it was a show that was actually going places and then it stopped. I think that's one of the biggest problems with having an unrelentingly bleak atmosphere, is there's only so many places you can go with that before everybody's dead. You know, one of the great things about Battlestar Galactica, the original show, is that it had all these fantastical elements. It had more than just blood and death. You gotta have more. The reason why these old school universes actually worked is they gave you more than just drama and blaster fights. It's like Star Wars. You compare all the imaginative elements from just Episode 4 and compare that to Episode 7, and Episode 7 is just dull and lifeless. And that's really the biggest problem with modern day media. It is dull and lifeless. It's just, let's focus on maybe one character and one really limited plot and just spread it out. So, yeah, with that in mind, The Batman, which does the exact opposite of that. The Batman was released back in March, and I cosplayed in a much cheaper Batman costume to that. It was a lot of fun, actually, although that rubber mask, good God, I don't know how anybody could act in that, because just walking around was not fun, which is why my new Batman costume just has a cowl that fits over the head. It doesn't actually have a neck portion. But yeah, The Batman was remarkably good. And of course, the outrage merchants were like, it's anti-white. Let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of anti-white media out there. And The Batman wasn't one of them. There's one line uttered by the Catwoman character, played by Zoe Kravitz, that was bad. Everybody in the audience groaned at it, and that was it. That was one line. And I'm not going to let one line ruin what is a really, really good movie. Batman, played by Robert Pattinson, you know, a few years ago in a live stream, I complained about that. And, you know, I was like, oh, he's going to be terrible. And I'm going to eat those words. He was a really good Batman. The Batman plays up the detective aspects of Batman more than the actual fighting aspects, which I think works pretty well. I mean, I like to see the detective side of Batman. And it is one of those movies that it has like 3 different endings, but it doesn't get boring. You just kind of want to see where they're going to go with it as it continues on, because when you have a movie like The Batman, you never know if there's going to be the sequel. So it's like, okay, just keep going. Let's see what happens. You know? And it worked remarkably well. I could tell that, like, upon further reflection, that there were like some endings tacked on to that movie, but they work. I think they probably should have just stopped at stopping the Riddler and not keeping it going after that, because that last fight scene just seems kind of gratuitous, but it worked well enough. I really quite like the Batman costume. I think that having a much skinnier, more ninja-y Batman works pretty well. And I really enjoyed the Batmobile. That has got to be one of the best Batmobile chases. I just absolutely love that demonic engine sound coming out of the Batmobile. It was awesome. You know, for a modern day superhero movie, The Batman was remarkably good. I'd have to say it's probably my second favorite Batman, live action Batman of all time. With the best still being Batman 89 with Michael Keaton. You just can't get better than the first one. Okay, let's see. Books. Trying to remember if I did this in a live stream or if I did this in a monthly vlog. I don't remember. That's one of those problems when there's so many months. Since it's been a lot of time since February, I don't think I talked about Residue. I don't think. If I'm repeating myself, just let me know in the comments. It's like when you hit your 30s, your memory starts going, assuming you had in the first place. But there are several books I want to recommend. Book 1, Residue, written by Steve Diamond. Book 2, Armageddon Saint, written by Gav Thorpe. Armageddon Saint is actually book 4 of the Last Chancer series, which is basically the Dirty Dozen, but Warhammer 40k. And for those of you too young to know what Dirty Dozen is, it's basically a bunch of criminals that are put in a penal legion that are sent to fight the harshest enemies in the 40k universe. Armageddon Saint is the last book and actually brings the 2 major characters from the Last Chancers into the current 40k setting. And it works remarkably well. I mean, it was really good. I was surprised at how good it was. Residue is a good book because it is a simple standalone monster hunter sort of thing. Basically, it's supposed to be YA fiction, but it didn't really feel YA to me. Basically, you got this kid, and he's got like psychic powers, monsters exist, and his girlfriend has to train him not to be an idiot. It's pretty good. It doesn't really have an ending because Steve Diamond wants to make money. Steve Diamond is actually a writer who is best friends with Larry Correia, and I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about him. And speaking of Larry Correia, there is a book trilogy that I binged in a week. These are 500-page books that I binged in 1 week. They were that good. Called the Grimoire Chronicles. Basically, it's 1930s, but with magic. And It's pretty good. The thing is, though, the first book is by far the best, and the other two are pretty good. The last book is a bit rushed. The middle book feels a bit meandering, although there is a giant monster at the end, so I can't really complain too much. The first book is essentially Star Wars, but the 1930s. You've got the farm boy, well, there's a girl in this case, and actually, here's the best part about the Luke Skywalker equivalent is how Rey should have been done. The Rey Skywalker equivalent already had a little bit of training and had super magical powers, but there was a price. And it's really quite good. I mean, if Rey had been done like her, I wouldn't have had as much problem with her. So there's that. But the Han Solo equivalent had to go to prison for a while and is super intelligent, but also a big guy. Larry Cordia likes to subvert that expectation. But it's basically Star Wars, but 1930s. There's an evil emperor, the Japanese emperor, actually. There's a Death Star, which is a giant airship, and the super lasers manufactured by Nikola Tesla, who's also a wizard. John Moses Browning shows up. It's like, and also the Darth Vader character is one of the characters' brother. It's like, no, I am your brother. Oh my god, former roommate. It's just a really damn good trilogy. Like, I cannot recommend that enough. I also, it's not a new recommendation, but I'll still recommend Halo Fall of Reach. It's one of the best military science fiction books I have ever read. And I've read a lot. It's like, it's got the characters, it's got the plot, it's got everything. Even if it wasn't based on a game, it would still be one of the best military science fiction books I've ever read. It's just got everything a military science fiction book needs to actually not suck. Trying to find a good Mil SF book is very difficult because they all have the same plot, and pretty much they're all written from the first person perspective, and it's always about military dude going through boot camp, and you basically can just cookie cutter it after that. Fall of Reach actually gives you a really cool setting, really great characters that actually have depth to them. I cannot recommend that enough. Let's see. Anything else, ladies and gentlemen? How long have we been going? 22 minutes. I need a vacation. Let's see. Books, games, movies, TV shows. Halo the TV show, Batman. Well, I suppose that's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And I will see you all on the next live stream. But until then, I'm going to wish you good. Ebon Hawk and good. Cyclone class carrier, whatever makes you happy.